Alright, at this point, you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with God? Well, in the story that we're going to look at today, there's a bunch of people who believe that certain objects, like stones and lakes and rivers and weird things like that, actually are gods. And not only do they think that, but they actually sit down and they worshipped the god of stones. You know, like, you are God to stones. Can you imagine saying that to a rock? Like, rockheads. Anyways, they really aren't gods at all, as you probably know. Because we're going to find out today that there is only one true God. So, the story we're going to look at today is found in a part of the Bible called the Old Testament. And in this story, there's a group of people called the Israelites. And the Israelites were God's chosen people. That means that God chose them to worship Him. Hey, that's kind of like you, isn't it? So, God wanted them to worship Him, the one true God. But one time, there was a time that they had a king named Ahab. Ahab didn't want the people to worship God. Ahab wanted the people to worship an object. That object's name was Baal. Baal. Pretty funky, huh? Yeah, I thought so. So God commanded His prophet Elijah to go to Ahab the king and to tell him that his people, the Israelites, were supposed to worship him and him alone. Check this out.
Ahab? It's me, Elijah, God's prophet.
Yeah, you're the one who's caused all the problems, aren't you?
I haven't caused any problems, Ahab. It's you who's been causing them. You stopped worshiping the one true God and have commanded the Israelites to worship the false god Baal. It is now time for God to show His power as the one true God, and I've got an idea.
Does it involve God striking me dead with lightning?
No, it's way better than that.
Okay, wise guy, what's your idea?
Alright, you go get those guys who've been telling everybody to worship the stones, those prophets of Baal, and you tell them to meet me on the mountain at 4 o'clock today.
What, those guys over there?
Yeah, those chumps.
Fine.
So, here's where you come in. You need to play the part of the 450 prophets of Baal. Now, we could have brought in 450 people to play those parts, but we thought, hey, why not let you kids do the work? So here's what we're going to do. Whenever you see this on your screen, whatever you see, I want you to yell out whatever the sign says together. Okay, now let's try this out, alright? The word is... When you see that sign, I want you to yell that word, okay? Good job. So then, Elijah told the prophets of Baal to build an altar out of wood. And then they put the meat of an animal on top of it. Now, that's pretty wild. But he asked them not to set fire to it yet, because here's what he wanted to do. And he told the men, he said, I want you to yell out to your God and ask your God to put a fire on this altar. And I'll do the same thing after you guys do it. And whoever God puts fire on the altar will be the one true God. And to that challenge, the 450 prophets of Baal said... So that's exactly what they did. The contest was on. It was competition 101. The 450 teachers of Baal brought the meat of an animal and placed it on their altar and began to yell out, but nothing happened. 450 people yelling out, and nothing. No fire, no response from their God, nothing. And so they begin to yell out even louder. But still, nothing happened. In fact, they continued to yell and scream from early morning until the middle of the day, and still, their false gods did not send fire to burn their sacrifice. And so Elijah began to tease them, saying,
Yell out to your God. Why is he not answering? Is he busy? Perhaps he's away on a journey. Or better yet, maybe he's asleep and you need to wake him. Or maybe he's on the toilet.
So from noon until that evening, the prophets of Baal began to shout out with all their might. But still, nothing happened. The wood, the altar, the animal remained exactly as it was in the beginning of the day. But then, Elijah looked at the prophets of Baal and said, "Come near to me." And all the prophets of Baal leaned in close so that they could hear what Elijah had to say. But at first, Elijah said nothing. He just began making his altar. His altar to the Lord. So Elijah then, he took 12 stones and he began to make this altar. 12 stones on an altar. He put wood on the altar. He put an animal on the altar. And then he dug a trench around the whole altar. Everybody's thinking, what are you doing, dude? What's going on, Jack? He ordered men to put 4 pitchers of water inside the trench. And then again. And then again. More water. And more water. And the Bible says he ordered 10 to 12 gallons of water to be placed inside of the trench. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was trying to start a fire, it wouldn't have anything to do with water. I wouldn't want to pour water on it. But Elijah did. But when Elijah finished pouring the water out onto the altar, he went close to the altar, and this is what happened.
Lord, please answer me so that these people will know that you are the only true God.
And with that, God sent fire down from the sky. The fire completely engulfed the whole altar. And not only did it burn up the wood, but it burned up the whole animal on the altar, and it burned up all the dust that was on the altar, and yes, it even burned up every last drop of water that was on top of and inside of the altar. That's crazy. When the 450 prophets of Baal looked and saw that the one true God had put fire on top of the altar, they dropped to their knees and they cried, God had done it. He had provided the fire, and he had showed that he alone was to be worshipped. He alone was to be glorified. He alone is God.